Right, it's time to get off my ass and head up into the bush. We'll basically aim to do a circuit around either that way or that way, depending on what the wind does when I get in there, because again, it's all over the shop. But that's the way it goes. We've just got to play the conditions and deal with it as we go. But the animals are hungry. They are out feeding a lot longer than they normally would be, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of pressure here at the moment in this location. As much as I've got the cameras and whatever, if it does happen in here, it could happen quick. Whether I get a chance to bring it all to you, or whether you just see an animal down on the ground. If I choose to take the shot, we'll see what happens. Right, I'll just get to the edge of the bush line here, and before I go in too far, I'll just touch on a couple of topics. First of all, a lot of people ask me, why isn't Lee in hunting in here with you? More so, why isn't Lee and April? Well, the bottom line is there's a lot of wild dogs in here, so there's baiting and trapping, so we just got to make sure that the dogs are close to us if we take them in here, and in a lot of cases it's just not worth it. And to add to that, and I don't want to touch on this subject for too long, there's a bit of a tragedy. Actually, it's a massive tragedy. Good mate of ours that breeds the Vizslas, and actually is a breeder of April, Lee's dog. Well, April's brother was shot dead the other day, and I really hate to use the word by another hunter, but basically, yeah, he was with our mate, 15 metres in front, doing what the dog's designed and trained to do, and that's basically hunt. He stood up in a log, looked down, seen something, knew it wasn't another animal, so barked, and before he could get called back, shot rang off, the dog was dead. And what adds fuel to the fire for us is this so-called shooter that shot the dog dead bolted. So all I can say to you, mate, is calm as a bitch. This is going to be a challenge, but it's a great way to spend an afternoon. Seiko 7mm mag. That's certainly not one of my cases, but another reminder that I'm not the only hunter that could be out here. It's extremely humid and eerily quiet. But it's something about these conditions that just draw you back to the bush every time. Well, there's at least one active buck in this area. Let's see if we can cross paths. I reckon if he's going to be anywhere, he'll be up on the ridge up here, and probably within 50 to 200 metres of the fence line, because that's where his ghouls will be. Well, there's no doubt that there's active animals in here, as in fallow and probably a few sambar. And just behind me, they've been going to town. This is the sort of place that I would half expect to see a fallow buck bedded. It's certainly no fallow. It's coming closer. I have to shoulder the rifle. Man, that happened quick. I can't handle the cameras and take a shot like that in that situation. You forget how big sambar are in comparison to fallow. Actually, they're just big. But yeah, that animal, she started off over there honking me, and I thought, no, just hold your ground, just stand, don't move. Lucky I had the whistle in the side here, go a couple of puffs, then I heard just a couple of twigs break down to my right. I was up here on virtually on the crest, and I just about thought, no, it's just gone down the gully, and then I just seen a shape down here. So I got the whistle back up again, couple of puffs. This time she committed. She took about 5 or 10 steps, sort of quartering onto me, and then I just seen her whole front shoulder, her chest come through, and just as she was quartering on just that little bit, sent one right through the neck, and she literally rolled over backwards, dead as a doornail. So for a little 130 grain projectile at that range, which is probably, I'd say 40, maybe 50 yards at best, pretty potent. Well, we're 3 shots in on live targets with the little 130 grains Barnes TTSX, a little monolithic, and so far they've performed pretty well. Obviously on the smaller, lighter deer, the fallow, it's passed straight through, and I wouldn't have expected anything different. But I've tried my favourite high shoulder shots, and if I get opportunities over the coming months and year and whatever, I'll go with some of the more traditional heart-lung shots just to see if they perform any different. I really expect the Barnes, being a harder physical built projectile, requiring a little bit more structure, as in bone, to get it to actually excite and do its job of pedaling out and punching through. But they also need to run as fast as they possibly can. And as I mentioned previously, I haven't chronographed these loads yet, but I will do it in the future. And when I do know, you'll know. But I just thought I'd show you a reason. One of the reasons I've gone with the 130s, when I normally shoot the 150 grain SSTs, the Hornadies that is, that's a 130 grain Barnes TTSX, a monolithic. Now I know it's going to be hard for me to show that here. They are almost identical in size. So I've taken a couple of photos, which you'll look at now, so you can see how a 130 grain monolithic projectile, even though it's 20 grains lighter, is physically almost identical in dimensions to the 150 and the Hornady SSTs. And the same goes, that's a Hornady SST 165, and that's a 150 grain Barnes monolithic. Oh, it's going to look pretty stupid, me trying to hold these here, but again, they'll be in the photos, just to demonstrate why we dropped back, or I should have dropped back, one size when I went to monolithic. In other words, where I was shooting the 150 grain SSTs with great success, I thought, after a few people had mentioned to me, you think you need to drop back a size. And one of the main reasons is if you're pushing the same projectile, as in a 150 TTSX, into the load that you're using for a SST, you're losing case dimensions because that projectile needs to go in further, so you're losing powder capacity. So what I found with the 150 Barnes TTSX in previous years, so just didn't have enough velocity with the 308, even though I would load it up quite stoutly, and I just found that I wasn't getting great results, not as good as I was with the SST. Now, just for argument's sake, again, I'll put some photos up of these. That is a 150 grain Barnes TTSX recovered from a large sambar stag that I shot at 10 yards. Now, even that animal, perfect sort of centre chest shot, I recovered that on the other side, and that animal went about 50 metres. Now, it doesn't sound a long way, but 50 metres in the bush can be the difference from you finding or losing a deer. So I'm going to be interested when I start to recover some of these 130s to see how they go. That sambar, I know it was only 40, 50 yards, that hit that like the hand of Thor. And I was quite impressed, to be honest with you. It was dead as soon as that projectile hit it. And hopefully, as I test it over the coming months or year, I'll be able to give you a little bit more feedback. I'm not specifically going to continue making videos on these monolithics, but any time I get some results, if I can recover projectiles, I didn't manage to get that 130 grain projectile out of that sambar at the time, But yeah, in the future, I'll be keen to see how they go. But my initial thoughts are that these monolithics, one, they need to be run hot, and they need to hit something hard to get full expansion. In other words, a bit of bone and whatever. But when they do, they certainly seem to get the job done. So stay tuned over the coming months and years, as I've said, and hopefully we'll get a few more results when I get the opportunity. I hope you've enjoyed this little series, and until next time, stay well.